Hello and welcome to the November episode of Let's Talk Tech. This episode is going to focus on television technology. We'll cover frequently asked questions and have a conversation with Paul Ortiz, Director of Broadband, about the future of television viewing here in the village. Hi, Cheryl. It's almost turkey time. Fall is here.
And I heard that your November is going to be really fun.
Yes, cheerio. We'll get some pictures on my next show.
So let's get to business. We know that there are a lot of questions going on about broadband and television. And I think we also know that a lot of these things are for help. But I think with a little information, people could probably handle these things by themselves, don't you?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. There are so many things that are just pretty basic, but the first thing that happens with technology, if it doesn't work, you panic.
Right.
It's the momentary panic. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through some of those really, really easy to fix things that is really 90% or more of what happens, like a battery.
Right. Right.
All right. So let's get to the questions.
Okay, you gave me a bunch of questions, and I'm going to ask the questions, and you're going to answer them, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Is an appointment necessary to be able to receive basic cable channels when you move in or get our service?
That's a great question. No, most manners in Laguna Woods Village are basic cable ready. As long as you have a working cable outlet, you can connect your coax cable directly to any digital TV, run a channel scan, and receive more than 100 channels included in your HOA dues. No activation or cable box is required as long as the cable was not disconnected. In fact, I only use the cable from the wall and stream everything else. More about that soon. The cost of that is part of my monthly HOA fee, and I pay for streaming separately. But there are occasions where cable isn't live because the previous occupant had it disconnected. Really, you should just be able to screw the coaxial cable into the TV connection, run a channel scan, and get TV. If you do see multiple coax cables in your home, they might not all be active. So start with the one in the main living area first and try it. I know in my first place here, there were 3, and I had to try them all to find out which one was working. On the screen, you can see the link to our website to learn about all of what we offer here in our community.
Okay, next question. How can I troubleshoot my remote control?
Most of the time, it's the battery and not the actual remote. A common sign that the remote control batteries need to be changed is when the remote control has trouble switching to 3-digit channels. The signal goes from the remote to the box, and that needs to be strong and requires line of sight from this remote to your box. So here's what you can do. Replace the batteries, ensuring that they're installed properly. Make sure your television or your set-top box is actually turned on. Change channels by pressing the buttons on your television itself, not the remote, and remove objects such as furniture, books, plants from around your television or set-top box. Position your receiver at a different angle to help it detect your remote. Make sure you're using the right remote designated for that device or that correct television, because if you have more than one, you probably have more than one remote. And reboot your television or set-top box by unplugging it and plugging it back in. Be sure to allow at least 60 seconds before plugging it back in. If you're still having issues, after trying all of those measures without success, then you can just take your old remote, bring it here to the community center, Laguna Woods Community Center on El Toro Road for a replacement. It's downstairs in the resident services area. You just go in there and it's easy to exchange this remote. Great question, Cheryl.
Okay, Debbie, the next question. My picture is not always very good, but is there anything I can do to make it better?
Well, after you check your glasses, just kidding. So, if you're experiencing poor image quality or have no picture while using broadband services, you should follow the steps that I'm about to share with you. Confirm your television or set-top box have power and are turned on. Verify that the television is on the correct input, such as video 1, HDMI, or pressing the input source. Or TV and video is on your remote control. So those are things on the remote control that you'd press. And that's a very common problem. If you think your television is turning off on its own, you should check the television's power settings. This feature automatically powers off your receiver after 4 hours of idle time. And that's also a really common issue. In fact, one of my TVs turns itself back on in the middle of the night. So you should also check the connections for loose or damaged cables or fittings. The cables need to be tight to work the best. They also have a little pin inside that can be bent. So make sure that nothing is pressing on the cable in the wall, like a piece of furniture against it. You can also unplug or replug your HDMI or your component cables. Those are all the things in the back of your TV. But really be careful when removing them. They aren't very tough, and if you yank them or pull them, you can really damage them quite easily. You can also press the channel up and down button to determine if the issue is channel specific. Try to reboot your television or set-top box by unplugging the power cord from the wall and waiting at least 60 seconds before unplugging it back in. You can also call and confirm that there are no outages in the area by calling Broadband Services at the support line at 949-837-2670. That number should be on the screen. If you have done all that and still have an issue, it's likely the TV itself. Newer models of TVs just don't last as long as they used to. Another good question, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
All right, here we go. My neighbor is moving. How should they return their equipment to Broadband?
All equipment issued by Broadband Services remains the property of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods. For those moving out of the community or planning on downgrading or changing their services, they should visit the Broadband office inside Resident Services at the community center that I just gave you the address to. That's where you come and you can return your equipment, or you can also call 949-837-2670, and one of our technicians will actually come and pick up the equipment. But residents are responsible for returning set-top boxes, DTAs, and any auxiliary equipment provided by Broadband Services. Failing to return any of those rented or leased equipment to us or Broadband after canceling or downgrading, you'll be charged. So you want to make sure that you bring back any equipment that doesn't belong to you. This fee will be included in your total account balance if you don't return it. That's a really good question too, Cheryl.
Okay, here we go. Sometimes I can't see my clock display on my set-top box. What should I do?
If you have a silver Polaris remote, on the left side beneath the TV button, there's a menu button and you press it twice. Listing by time should be highlighted. Using the down arrow on the remote, go down through the menu to the second page until you see Setup on your screen, and then press OK. On the right side, a second entry down, you'll see an option for cable box setup, and that'll be again on your screen. Press OK once it's highlighted. The first option should be the front LED display and current channel. Press the right arrow on the remote and it will change to the current time. And then be sure to press exit. Hopefully that helped too, Cheryl.
Next question. I was talking to my friends and we wondered why sometimes the TV commercials are so loud compared to the movie we were watching. Is there anything we can do?
Yes, I've heard about that too, and even experienced it while watching television. And you may notice that increase in volume between programs and commercial ads. At times, those commercials and ads are inserted into a standard programming spots, and they may just feature a volume level greater than that of the actual programming. But now, thanks to the Commercial Advertisement Loudness Mitigation, which is called the CALM, C-A-L-M Act, The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, and they require that commercials have the same average volume as the programs they accompany. There is a national broadcast channel, though, that still doesn't follow all the rules, and that's really unfortunate. But the good news, our broadband is paying attention. While we at Broadband cannot alter the volume of those national commercials or cable network advertisement, Broadband proactively monitors the programmers, and they take the steps to ensure CALM Act requirements are met. If you experience loud commercials on a regular basis, please call 949-268-2041 to make a report, and be sure to note the commercial, the channel it was on, and the time that it happened. The more info that you can provide, the easier it is for us at Broadband to pursue action.
So what can I do to alleviate loud commercials?
Many new HD TVs can eliminate volume variances between programs and commercials through the television's audio settings. Some home theater systems also offer audio control options to help control volume differences. The best thing to do is refer to your TV and audio equipment manuals to learn how to update the audio settings. This might require finding your manual, but all TV manufacturers will offer their manuals online too on their websites. You will need to know your model number, though, to look it up. But if your TV has this option, you are always the best first defense to fix something. So keep that in mind.
Here we go. I have a new neighbor, and they were asking me about internet here. What should I tell them about signing up?
West Coast Internet provides high-speed internet services to the Laguna Woods Village community at a very affordable cost. Outside companies such as Comcast charge much higher monthly fees for similar speeds. Please know, though, that the rates haven't been changed for 8 years, so you should consider that might change in the future. But of course, if that happens, all that information will be shared with the community when and if that occurs. The speeds we have here, though, are really quite good for our needs. In fact, I decided to just upgrade to the highest speed to see what the difference was, and I'm now getting more than double the speed that they promised me. As more and more devices get connected in our homes, it will take up some of the speed, but a Ring doorbell or Wi-Fi enabled light bulb are very small amounts of data use, so you really shouldn't have any big effect. In fact, in a previous episode, we discussed how much data is used for streaming in devices, and you're welcome to go onto YouTube and see it if you want. If you'd like to learn more, the website link is up on the screen for you to look at all the services we offer with regards to internet and to learn more. So up on your screen now, too, are all the numbers that you need to know. For new service, call 949-487-3302. For billing service, call 949-487-3303. For tech support, call 949-487-3307. And for all your broadband needs and services, you can call 949-837-2670 or stop by the Laguna Woods Community Center on El Toro Road at the Resident Services office on the first floor adjacent to the lobby, and one of the representatives will be more than happy to assist you. Cheryl, those were all such really good questions, and I am so happy that I got a chance to answer them, and I hope that it helped our residents and your friends and you to, have some answers to some very basic and commonly asked questions. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Debbie, for having me here.
Oh, I always enjoy it. Thank you. Next up, I will chat with Paul Ortiz, Director of Broadband Services, on television viewing here in the village and on the hard work of the Broadband Committee to make sure we are well connected into the future. And now we're going to go into the Village Television Studios and chat with Paul Ortiz. Hi, Paul.
Hey,
how
Debbie.
are you?
Great. How are you doing?
What you doing?
Well, this is actually, obviously one of our TVs that we use here on this day. We use it for other programs. But, nowadays, these smart TVs are almost like computers, right? So I was just updating some of the software and some of the apps that are included with a lot of these smart TVs. So, you know, we have Netflix, Prime. Obviously, we don't subscribe here, but people in the home seem to be taking to that pretty well nowadays.
I see that. I see by our numbers that people are finally doing streaming, and, you know, really that's taking over.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the United States, 88% of homes actually stream in some way. And I was just checking out some of the stuff that we do at my house, and 64% of our data is all used to stream video. So, you know, you can tell that everybody is really adapting to that. Instead of paying the higher prices of cable TV and satellite TV, they're now moving to these different, you know, apps. And it also gives them a little more of a selection. If you're not a big sports fan and you just like Disney products, or you just like Peacock products on NBC, then you can, you know, pick out really what you like. And I think it's definitely where the future is going as far as consuming video content.
And that's kind of what, you know, we talk a lot on the show about TV, smart TVs, streaming, and things like that, and the cost of things, and everything's going up. But I find it fascinating that 64% of your data is going for streaming. And I think one of the things people get a little confused about is how much data do you need? But you have a big house with kids, and they're all using devices. In our community, we have, you know, we're not as big of a place, but people would be surprised how many devices.
Oh, you'd be very surprised. I was talking to Jim Cook the other day, and we said, oh, well, you know, the average probably has 15, 20 devices, and everybody kind of went, wow, that's a lot. He ended up like almost 30, because you have to think about it. If you have a little leak detector that's electronic and it's on your Wi-Fi, and if you have you know, an Alexa, or if you have one of those, you know, meshes, all of those things, a Ring doorbell even, people don't realize that all those electronics and devices actually take bandwidth and use up your Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, and every little bit adds up. That's the thing. You think, oh, it's just a Wi-Fi light bulb. You know, you could tell Alexa, turn on my light, but that's a Wi-Fi connection.
Right.
And maybe it's just using a thread size, but still, if you start to add and you start to get like iPads and TVs and everything, it'll start to add up.
Yeah.
But the good news is we still today have pretty good speeds here.
We do have pretty good speeds. You know, it reminded me of the days when I was a child, when your dad would always come by and, you know, turn off the lights. Who left all these lights on? Well, it all added up, right?
Right.
And all those lights on in your room, even though you're not using them, are still taking up bandwidth. So it's interesting. We're working now with the ad hoc committee on broadband. And of course, our media and communications committee has always done an excellent job in trying to keep up with where we are technically. And then, of course, we always work with our partner, West Coast Internet, in providing the best broadband customer service. And then now we're talking about new technologies. The cable system was really upgraded in 1999, and that's when the fiber was actually put in the ground. And everybody talks about fiber now, but you've been utilizing fiber for 23 years now. So, you know, y'all were kind of ahead of the curve back then. We are fortunate to have residents that were willing to pay it forward and to build the fiber system so people like you could move in and still work and enjoy entertainment on your phones and devices. And now we're kind of looking at, okay, what's the future? And, you know, not only is it the infrastructure of it, but how are people like you going to now, you know, ingest content? You know, how are you going to watch TV? How are you going to go on the internet? And what are you going to do, and how are you going to do it?
Well, I think one of the things that everybody needs to realize too is that the days where we had the television and we had, you know, 3 channels, three or 4 major network channels, those days are really gone already.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can, you know, watch apps like you see here to just, you know, we've even got free TV. If you don't want to pay for an app, there's watch free TV. I think every smart TV comes with its own form. This is a certain brand, and I have the same brand, but I think there's one called Tubi. Yeah. There's a lot of different free options. So I don't want people to feel like, well, if we're just streaming, we can never watch anything, because that's not true. Yeah. There's a lot of free options out there, and you know, there's still a device that you can plug in. It's an antenna. Yeah. And you can get digital signals on it on your TV. So it's going to be a cafeteria style is what's going to ultimately happen. Is you're going to have, okay, I'm going to, you know, pick this, this, and this, and it's going to cost me that amount of money, and that's what I want to watch. So really, I've talked about this before on the show, making a list of what you actually watch, because a lot of times people are paying for things they're never even watching. Right,
and I think that's what's going to happen. A lot of these companies are going to go direct to consumer. You know, Amazon, like you said, now has a app called Freebie, and that's all free programming. So a lot of, like you said, a lot of these manufacturers, Roku's doing the same thing. They have their own channel, and if you want to just watch their content, you could easily do that. You don't have to buy Netflix. You don't have to buy ESPN Plus and Disney and all those things to have a huge variety of content. And then the other thing is too, you know, everybody has a set-top box now. So that's kind of like your brains of building your programming content. Well, as people go to streaming, this is all going to be done in the cloud at some point. So it's kind of like, you know, if I mention to my 14-year-old daughter, you know, we used to have rabbit ears. You know, she's going to look at me and go, rabbit ears?
Rabbit ears?
Yeah, that's exactly what she's going to think of. But that's how we used to, you know, get our transmission of content. Right. Well, now it's up in the cloud. And then even next is something called Next Gen TV, which is a 3.0 new system that the government is actually rolling out and testing in major markets. And that'll bring us HD, 4K kind of content, and also bring you data. So that'll be kind of nice when that is actually rolled out to America, which hopefully will happen in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and that was another thing. You and I have talked about this before. You know, we started talking about this a few years ago in our broadband ad hoc committee. And now all of a sudden we thought, oh, we have, you know, 10 years. No, because technology changes so rapidly that period has come down and shrunk into just, you know, like you said, 3 to 5 years versus we thought we might have 5 to 10 years. It's not so.
Yeah, the most important part for us, and we had this presentation by the Broadband group just last week, is that infrastructure, that backbone is always going to be some kind of fiber, whether it's the fiber we have in the ground today or whether it's the new fiber that goes into the network at some point. We're changing, remember the old tin can communication trick? Well, the string is always really going to be our fiber. And that's really where everyone is and still going. If you listen to the Broadband group that is doing for the government and for rural markets, you know, they're not talking about doing satellite and Wi-Fi and all this stuff and microwaving. They're talking about putting fiber in the ground. So you have fiber, so what we need to do is just change the cans, I would say every 10 or 15 years, because technology will change. And then that's really, you know, the extent of a major upgrade or a major rebuild.
And that was very visionary when this community was developed, to have the wherewithal to know that we were going to need something so far in the future. Yeah. But we have it.
And we were lucky because, you know, I've met Ross Cortese a couple of times. He's I want to say vanity, but you know, the reason we really have conduit in the ground is because he did not like antennas. He thought they were ugly, and he didn't want them on his brand new homes. And we are so fortunate he was, you know, such a forward-thinking person that actually they direct buried coaxial cable.
And that's interesting too, because having things in the ground is so much safer for any kind of like natural disasters for the most part. Like the unfortunate people in Florida, because if anything was above ground, it was gone. And they were able to communicate in the areas that had the underground. So that's something people don't even think about. Everybody's so used to just turning on a button and everything works.
Well, the majority of the country actually has all of their equipment on telephone poles.
Wow.
In California, find me another telephone pole that's, especially here in South Orange County. And then the other thing, like you said, not only are we, you know, have coaxial cable and fiber in the ground, but we actually have it in conduit. So it's a plastic tube that actually protects it from the elements even more. So, you know, we're very fortunate. Our environment is pretty stable. And, you know, unless there's a major earthquake or someone decides to dig up the street somehow and not notify us, that fiber in the conduit is pretty safe and should continue to work.
Right. But technology changes are not without some kind of cost, but we don't know what that is yet. So we will definitely be looking at that because we want to be able to offer the best that we can to our residents to keep them in connect, you know, because some of our residents, this is all this is their daily thing because they're homebound or they're not able to, they're not ambulatory and they need their televisions to be their companion. And, and it's important to them. And it's, I mean, I always have my TV on, even if I'm not watching it, it's always Village Television, always on my TV.
And it's important too that, you know, we have nearly 11,000 subscribers taking broadband high-speed internet now. So obviously, like you mentioned earlier, that pipe is getting full with users. So we need to find a way that we can provide faster service, faster speeds, and make sure that everybody's able to watch the content they want and still have whatever devices in their home. And that's what we're looking into in the future.
That's exactly it. And I'm so glad that we had this time today. And I always love all the apps. And then I think, why am I not watching that? Or why am I not watching that? There's only so many hours in the day.
Well, we definitely want to encourage our residents to join us on the third Monday of every month. That's at 1:30 in the boardroom, and that's the Media and Communications Committee. If you have any questions or comments regarding the broadband division, just that's your time to have that discussion and bring your thoughts forward to the committee.
That's a great point, Paul, because when we have these committee meetings, we offer open member comments every time, and we do want to hear from you. So please join us. And the Media and Communications is a very informative meeting. I attended as an alternate on the committee, but I am on the broadband ad hoc. So I encourage residents, please tell us what you're thinking. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming by Village Television. It's always good to talk to you.
I love it here. This is my home away from home. And we'll be right back. A quick reminder on scams as we close the show. The use of Zelle continues to be an area with a lot of problems. Be super careful. Just don't interact. If you get any text, call your bank. The problem with Zelle right now is banks are not offering any kind of backups like you would with a credit card scam. So there's a potential that you would lose that money. So remember, you get a Zelle, anything on your phone, don't interact, contact your financial institution immediately. And hopefully there'll be some intervention coming up to help all the innocent people with these ongoing banking scams. And I wanted to share a few special days in November as we close. November 5th is National Donut Day. Oh my goodness, yum. And of course, remember our veterans on November 11th. And then Turkey Day, Thanksgiving on November 24th. And two of my favorites are this month, Cyber Monday on November 28th and Computer Security Day on November 30th. Make sure you change your passwords regularly. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that we were able to answer your questions about television viewing in the village and give you a glimpse of the future and a reassurance that we have the back of our residents and are looking at every option. This was an information-rich program this month, so remember, you can rewatch us at your convenience on Village TV's YouTube channel. Simple to just subscribe to it. In fact, all previous episodes are available there for you too. So go to YouTube and subscribe, and that way all the wonderful shows produced and aired on Village Televisions are available at a click of a button. And next month, be sure to tune in to see our holiday tech gift-giving ideas, some information about home tech, email addresses, and more. Remember, be kind when posting online, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.